All right, today what we're going to do is we are going to look at using our trig functions this time. We talked about the ratio sides in the previous lesson, and now we're going to use those trig ratios. Now, what we're going to start with is how do we find our side lengths? In the past, we've always usually been given two side lengths to use when we wanted to find the side lengths for our triangles. So in this example below, what we have to use is we have to use the Pythagorean Theorem. We'll understand the whys to that a little bit later. Real quick, the simplest why is because there's only the 90-degree angle measure given the right angle. We can't use sine, cosine, tangent unless an angle measure is given to it. So what we're going to use is the Pythagorean Theorem. Remember, that's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Another way to think about it is leg squared plus other leg squared equals your hypotenuse squared. So when we look at these, that's what we're going to go through. Now on this problem here, we want to look at it and make sure that we understand how to solve for x. So in this problem, we have a leg squared plus our other leg squared, which is x, and our hypotenuse is 8 squared. Now, so 2 squared is 4, x squared we don't know, so equals 8 squared is 64. Subtracting the 4 to the other side, we're going to get x squared equals 60. And then to get our x by itself, we need to take the square root of it. So we're going to get x equals the square root of 60. Now, typically when we take the square root of something, we get the plus and the minus. Here we're only going to take the plus because our lengths are only positive. Now, what happens in the situation where you're not given that other side, but you're given an angle measure? Now you can use those ratio of sides, that sine, opposite over hypotenuse, cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse, tangent, opposite over adjacent, to find out what that missing side length is. So looking at this example here, we can easily find out what's going to be our side length. Now we got to think that, hey, 37 degrees is here. Which one of these trig ratios, sine, cosine, or tangent, are we going to need to use in order to find our answer? Well, from this 37 degrees, we have our opposite side, our adjacent side, and our hypotenuse. Now, what is given to us? We are given the information of 9 and x. Well, that goes with opposite and adjacent, opposite and adjacent. Well, that trig function then is the tangent. So we're going to use the tangent function. So the tan from our angle measure, 37 degrees, is going to equal opposite, which is 9, adjacent, which is x. Now we just use our order of operations and our algebra skills. To get rid of our x, we're going to multiply x on each side to cancel out our x. So we have x times the tangent of 37 degrees equals 9. Now the tangent of 37 degrees is just a number. So we're going to divide each side by the tangent of 37 degrees to cancel out our tangent of 37 degrees. So to solve for x now, we have x equals 9 divided by the tangent of 37 degrees. Now, a big key to remember is that you want to be in degree in your calculator. So pulling up the calculator from the computer, to solve this out, I would type in 9 divided by the tangent of 37, and then hit equals, and it gives me an answer of 11.94. So our length here is 11.94 for that side length labeled up here x. Now let's look through another example. We still want to find this missing side length. We're given an angle measure and two sides. Can't use the Pythagorean theorem because we need another side length to be given and then a missing side. So from 52 degrees, what are the sides given? X is the opposite, and 15 is the adjacent, or is the hypotenuse. So, which trig function is opposite and hypotenuse? Well, good job. That's our sine. So we're going to use the sine from 52 degrees, which equals opposite x over hypotenuse, which is 15. Just like before, we're not going to change our steps at all. We're just going to multiply each side by 15. By 15 gets rid of our 15 in the denominator, so we have 15 times the sine of 52 degrees. It's going to equal x. Now we're going to type this into our calculator. I'm going to clear out, and we have here 15 times the sine of 52 degrees, and hit equals, and I get a side length of 11.82. Great job. Now, remember the difference between 1 and 2 from using a sine for this one and going back over to the first example in a tangent was what ratio of sides was given to us. So as we work out this third example, you think about what trig function are you going to need, what ratio of sides is 7 and x going to give you from the angle measure of 40. Take a minute. Hit pause, work through this problem, and check your work after you hit play again. All right, let's check your work. So for this problem, we have our adjacent side and our hypotenuse. So adjacent and hypotenuse would go with our cosine. So what we're going to do now is use the cosine from 40 degrees. Cosine from 40 degrees is going to equal our adjacent, which is 7, and our hypotenuse, which is x. So we get x cosine 40 degrees equals 7. Divide over the cosine, so we're going to get x equals 7 cosine 40 degrees. So x is going to equal, well, let's go to our calculator. I'm going to clear out from our previous example. 7 divided by cosine of 40 and hit equals, and we get 9.13785 and going through it. I'm going to take it to the second decimal place, so I'm going to write as, I'm going to round up that 3 to a 4, so we're going to get 9.14. Excellent. Very good. Now let's keep going, and let's think about our recap. What do we use? How do we solve our problems? What are we going through? What were the steps? Remember, you got to know your ratios. So, ka, toa. Okay. Right? We look at our ratios from the angle measure. Right? We want to make sure our calculator is in degrees. And then we want to just solve through the problem and solve for x. Great job. Now let's go on and take our assessment quiz. Go out to QuizStar like you did on the last lesson. Take your quiz. Remember, you get an hour for each one. Take up to 10 tries. Remember, that 100 mark is what we're shooting for, so keep going until you hit that 100. Great job today.